Haven't done this for a while, but let me see if I can get it right. Boogity, boogity, boogity! Ooh, let's go racing, boys!
Always love when we get back to Darlington. That old lady in black, she still has a few tricks up her sleeve. DW obviously in the booth there with the Fox gang, getting us started the old throwback way that we're used to. But we had some throwback schemes, but one thing that wasn't throwback was this 2311 Tyler Reddick kid who is just like, he must be new to the game. I haven't heard this name before this season. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. He is only the third driver in Cup Series history to win 4 of the first 6 races in a season. Tyler Reddick, Bill Elliott, and Dale Earnhardt are the only 3 drivers that have ever done that. So we're going to welcome you into Inside the Race as we break down everything from Darlington. I'm Alex Weaver, joined as always by my favorite crew chief, Steve Letarte, and my favorite driver, Kyle Petty. We're hopefully going to have Todd Gordon join us from the MRN booth in Darlington. So he's going to hop on and say hello and break down what he saw in person. But Steve, we heard all week it was going to be difficult, and this was going to be the gnarliest Darlington race we were ever going to see this weekend with this updated rules package. Did we see that play out on the racetrack?
From my couch, no. From the driver's seat, yes. I'll be honest. So I'm a nerd. I'm a 2-screen guy. I'm watching on TV. I also have my SMT up, and I'm watching what the drivers are doing. And I will tell you, if you didn't tell me, I would have no idea the rules changed from the TV coverage. I think some because Darlington is just a kick in the pants. Every time you go there, it's always been the toughest place we've ever gone to drive. And I think these drivers are the best in the world. They, you throw something at them and they basically make it look easy. But I will tell you, I call them ducks, KP. You know why? Because above the water, they looked really calm. And below the water, they were pedaling. Speaking of the ducks, we'll talk about one of them right here.
Speaking of the ducks.
I was just saying, these guys were driving out of control.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of quacking today, Steve.
I love it. We're joined by driver number 2 from Team Penske, Austin Cindric. Steve was talking about from the driver's seat what it was looking like in this updated package. AC, less downforce. We've never run this here at Darlington before. More horsepower. What did you think inside the race car?
I mean, I think Steve nailed it. I mean, you rewatch practice and it doesn't, look a ton different. I mean, Darlington's still going to be Darlington. The track's only so wide, so you can only go so many places. And I can tell you inside the race car, it was swatting flies, especially yesterday. But, guys obviously did a good job to get our Freightliner Ford, a bit more comfortable to drive today. But we had raw speed all weekend, but a lot of the same keys that this place played in. It was probably a little harder to commit to making a pass because you just had to completely sell out for a slide job, 3 lanes down going into turn 3. But past that, I mean, you still had the tire wear, still definitely had pit cycles, short pitting, track position, all the things that make Darlington so mentally tasking, not just difficult to race, but the things that make it that much of a grind. Still definitely played today, but definitely got a sweat in today, and it was good to get a result with it.
Hey, so I was there for the first part of the race, and I agree. Watching it on TV and watching some of it, it looked exactly the same. I went down in 1 and 2, and you guys on the throttle, easy off, just pedaling. How hard was that? A lot different this race than it was the last race, because it just sounded totally different than what I remember it being there last.
You're definitely not as aggressive with the throttle inputs. I think twofold with the power added. We got to experience kind of what that offset was like at Phoenix, but then also, I think the bigger thing is just the downforce package not being as sealed to the back of the racetrack with the rear of the car, even at high speed. So it was challenging at times, but it was fun because I kind of pulled a lot of things back out of when I raced in the O'Reilly series, and ways you had to drive those cars, and backing up the corner sometimes. This car has been huge on just burying it into the corner and hoping for the best, and that still pays off at times. But you really have to back down the pace, the entry pace, to really start to get to the other side of things. And I did feel like I had some of that today, but it was interesting. Just as you guys were talking about, being able to adapt and learn new things. But that was not just from the driver's seat, but from everyone. I mean, having to make decisions on Wednesday for something that your tools have no idea what's going on from a team side. And I talked to every driver in the field. They said their simulators all drove terrible. I mean, I crashed about 10 times before I ever completed about 5 laps on the Ford sim, and that's not due to lack of effort for those guys. But then I talked to Hocevar on the grid for the truck race, and it sounded like he was driving my car on the sim. So it was interesting to kind of pick and pull from the field and see what what the challenges were, because I mean, I guarantee if we're to come back tomorrow and do all this over again, I'm probably not going to be working as hard. It's probably going to be easier to drive, but it's just fun to do it, but also get the reward of doing it well and seeing my team be able to perform like that. It's very satisfying for me.
Well, you finished top 10 in both stages and the race, the sixth time in your career that you've done this. What did you find at Darlington? And I know Blaney was doing Blaney things and passing a ton of cars, but you had a teammate who was running 33rd pretty much. So what did the two crew find at Darlington that worked for you guys this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, Darlington, last year was two solid events for us, and I can't speak for the other guys, and obviously we raced around Ryan, but he was obviously a little quicker there, and but yeah, for us it was just the first day we haven't had anything go wrong all year. We've had some really fast race cars, and I don't want to be that guy, but we haven't really been the ones taking ourselves out of it. If you look at the position in which we made impact for the first 4 races of the season, it's been pretty good. It's just having the points and getting the finishes, and even last weekend at Vegas, I thought our speed was solid. So like I said, just another reason why today's rewarding for this group, just because I think it's long overdue. This group's doing a lot of high level stuff. I feel like I'm doing a lot of high level stuff, and that's what it takes to be able to finish in the top 5 or top 10 in the Cup Series. And just glad that we were able to check that box today, and not in the first practice group. I can guarantee it for Martinsville next week. So I'm happy about that. We're still buried in the garage, but we'll work on that.
Hey, take me. I know you're young, great shape, but we saw like 4 breaks, right? A couple stage cautions, a couple other yellows. That's a long grind. That's 400 miles. That's 3.5 hours where you get about, I don't know, maybe 12 or 14 minutes of rest, or at least kind of mentally get to unplug. How taxing is the test to run an inch off the wall to make sure somebody's not pitting in front of you? We saw Denny run over the 43. We saw the 17 almost get run over on pit. Like, there's a lot going on, especially that turn 3 area. Just what kind of mental fatigue will you have for the rest of the evening?
Yeah, it's honestly, this is my least favorite race to drive home from for that reason. Because I'm gonna get in my pickup truck, I'm gonna get my F-150, I'm gonna leave the racetrack here, and I'm gonna follow the same 100 cars back to the Charlotte area and try not to get frustrated in traffic after being frustrated in traffic all day. It was probably the option to run into people and not have an issue or have the insurance company involved. So it is a very mentally taxing race. The Southern 500's no different. I think honestly the 400-mile race is harder because we usually have these stages split up into longer runs. So you actually have the shorter race has the longest runs, and it makes it it's a complete package of absolute torture for something to be going wrong or your car not to be driving well. But Bristol I look at is probably the most physically taxing race, whereas this is the most mentally taxing, no doubt.
25 miles per hour through McBee. That's my suggestion on
sure,
the drive home.
For sure, man.
The worst part is the 25, drop up to 15, go up to 45. It's the most brain power drive I ever have had in my life. You have to just actively watch.
Let your spotter ride with you. Let your spotter ride with you, man.
I'll have my mom with me, so she's even worse than the damn cops.
So listen,
making sure I don't speed. So
I want to ask you this, and Steve kind of touched on it on the mental aspect of it, but it was more than a throwback weekend. It was alumni weekend, and there were a lot of Darlington winners there. A lot of guys that had won at Darlington, and talking to those guys. And I had the pleasure to talk to Mark Martin and Harry Gant and so many guys and talk to them on stage outside. Every one of them talk about Darlington with a reverence. And they talk about Darlington when they have great runs there and win there, how satisfying it is as a driver and how it carried momentum through the season and to the next race and the next race, because they knew, hey, we were there at the Lady in Black. We got it done at that racetrack. What is this run do for you?
I think I echo that as far as the challenge that it takes to not just be fast here, but to complete a race. And not saying that I've been able to do that every time here, but to be able to do it, but also have, what feels like not a weight lifted off our shoulders as a team, but all right, we finally, finished one, let alone, have a good result for it. But it's a taxing place, and it's probably one of the hardest racetracks that you could describe to race fans or even my crew as far as what's happening inside the car. that makes it so difficult. It's funny. I even talked like some race fans today, and they're telling me about how they hate coming here when they play the NASCAR video game because they just don't understand it. They hate 3 and 4 because it's so much slower. And I relate to that because I can't describe to you what this place is like without just going out there and understanding. Same thing as talking about trying to pass at Darlington. It's hard to do. The place is no wider than your road that's in your subdivision. It's barely 2 cars wide. So it's a tough little join, and I think the hardcore race fans certainly respect that, and the hardcore drivers definitely seem to show up at this place. And I don't think from a winner standpoint, there's not too many guys that have just stumbled into victory lane at this place. It's probably the smallest victory lane in all of NASCAR, but I've never been in it, and I want to.
Really.
Good stuff.
It is a tiny victory lane. All right, AC. Well, we appreciate you joining us. I know it's a busy afternoon for you. You're ready to get home. But last question on the way home. It's about a 2-hour drive. I know you have Mama Cindric in the car. Is it music, silence, talking? What's the drive home like?
Ooh.
Definitely music, and I have to cater to my passenger, not because she'd get upset. She's a very easygoing passenger, but I try to keep it clean. She's actually making me a sandwich right now, so I gotta take care of Mama C. Yeah. So some things never change. 10, 15 years later, it's still the same bit. But no, it's cool. It's like I said, it's my least favorite drive, but we'll probably call some family and friends on the way home just because it's a good way to kill the time and be distracted from the traffic. But hope you all enjoyed the race today, and looking forward to next week.
All right. Appreciate it. Congrats on the top 10 today, bud. We'll see you next week in Martinsville.
Well, we were talking about it, and he kind of confirmed it, KP, which is that, I think the fans that watched that say, man, it didn't look any different. That's okay. I don't think you're crazy.
That's exactly.
I've been doing this for a long time, and it looked the same to me as well. But I think when you get one step further in it, and he just, even in that interview, he just seemed like you could push him over with a feather. And it's not because of the physical. I just think it's like trying to literally thread a needle at 170 miles an hour for 3.5 hours.
Listen, I'm going to say this. I wasn't there in 1950 when they ran the first race, but I got a feeling this race wasn't that much different than the first race they ran there in 1950. From a driver's perspective, from total. And what the fans saw then, what was tire wear and guys slipping and sliding. If we go back in time, they went in the infield and took tires off road cars and put on the race cars because they ran out of so many tires down there. So the history of the place and the toughness of the place. It's good to have a place like this on the circuit that in 2026, the drivers still talk about how hard it is, how taxing it is, how tough it is, and what the fans see is still one of the better races of the year.
Yeah, you just feel history when you pull into Darlington. It's old school. You get that old school feel. But let's talk about our winner here this week because Tyler Reddick, his 4th win this season. He's the only driver with multiple wins this season. I feel like every single Sunday has just been Tyler Reddick's playground lately. He overcame adversity, had alternator issues, wasn't charging the battery, had to replace the battery, had to empty his own cool suit. I mean, what a stud we're watching this season. So, Steve, I'm looking at you now. If you're Billy Scott and you're atop the pit box for this team right now, I mean, are you just taking a swing at it? Are you just trying things? What's your mojo every single week? Because you're so good.
So I think this is the hardest sometimes it is to lead a group because for 50%, you want to make sure you're celebrating. You don't want to take this for granted, I think, but this is what I think the garage thought Reddick could do after his dominance on Saturdays. He showed up, he had some excitement and went away for a little bit or became a little bit more average. I will never say bad, but he kind of became a good driver. And now this year, he has definitely elevated out of that good to whatever that next level you want to make it. So I think as a crew chief, if I'm Billy Scott, I want to make sure we appreciate the greatness we have in our car and the ability to win each and every week and what he's doing. But you also have to show up. It's a little like the NCAA tournament. I'll go March Madness, right? Guess what? When they throw the green at Martinsville, nobody cares what you did last week. So you got to find that. And that's different for every team, but you got to find a little bit of that chip on your shoulder while also celebrating the wins. And it's very hard to do. But I will tell you, Billy, if you're listening, and I will make sure I text him this week, enjoy it because he's doing a great job on top of the pit box. His call to change that battery and just get ahead of his problem, that shows great leadership. But in the end, this is a driver's sport, and I was lucky to crew chief for 2 great ones. And when you have a pedal pusher, man, there's nothing else. There's nothing else that makes magic happen like just raw talent. And I think that's what Reddick is showing, right? A couple speedways. I mean, everywhere we go, he just is good and fast. So man, it's fun to watch. I hope they're enjoying it because, like I said, next Sunday there'll be 35 other guys that really they'll probably be they'll even have a little chip on their shoulder, Kyle, that they don't have to see him win one more time.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, you said this wasn't a throwback race. It was a throwback race to 3 races ago. Okay, that's what this was. This was a throwback race. But I got to tell you this, Steve. I got to tell you, in those closing laps when he was running down the 6 car and doing some of that, and then just driving away, in my mind, I go straight to YouTube and the clip of Cale Yarborough up on the wheel driving where you can see him like that, just wheeling that thing, no neck, all down in that thing. And that's all I could think about was Cale Yarborough and how he would get up on the wheel when the wind was in sight, how he would just, Waddell Wilson used to say, Cale Yarborough, you tape a $5 bill to the hood of the car and let it flap so he could see the 5 on it. He'd run hard to try to make the money, to try to get to the money. That was just it. And that's the way Tyler drove the last part of this race when he came up through there. It was reminiscent of those guys. When you go back to Atlanta, coming off turn 4 to win the race with no right front fender, reminiscent of a young Cale Yarborough, a guy who just gets up on it, gets it done, makes it happen. And that's all that kept coming back to my head was Cale Yarborough at Darlington, South Carolina, was Tyler Reddick doing exactly the same thing all these years later. And I think Steve's exactly right. When you have magic hanging onto that steering wheel, take advantage of it. Do everything you can to keep that magic going. Do everything you can to give him what he needs to keep that spark going. And right now, I'm telling you, man, they're hanging on to a firecracker because this thing is absolutely a bottle rocket.
Stevie, that's the second driver who said you're absolutely right today. What's going on?
I'm recording them. Those are my ringtones. You don't know how that works. When
now that he's retired, every driver wants to tell him he's right.
He's absolutely right. Cindric, he's absolutely right. Wow, he's absolutely right. That's all I keep saying.
I just like that now that I've retired, somebody calls me a driver, because nobody called me a driver.
Don't worry, because my text messages are the opposite. It's like, I don't know what you did, but you made it work. Worst car I've ever driven. Yeah. I have a whole notebook full of getting cussed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to bring in another guy who I know he's a Clemson Tiger, so I know he's always right. But he was one of my favorite brains to pick in the garage when he was crew chiefing. But now repping the blue shirts for MRN. He was at Darlington today calling the race from the booth. Todd Gordon. Todd, what did you see from Darlington besides just a Tyler Reddick slide job clinic put on and a domination by 23-11 again?
I saw recovery. That's the piece that impressed me was the fact that they had an issue, identified it one. Lap 2, came down pit road when the first stage came down through, gave up track position, started the back. They continued to work their way forward. In tough positions, had to drain his cool suit, the cool shirt, and put himself there. Put the old school ice pack in. Kyle, you know about putting them in on your chest and trying to work that through. And then also Ryan Blaney, same thing. They had issues. Loose wheel, had to put in Austin Cindric's pit box. They had some slow stops. I saw recovery out of some fast cars and one to capitalize. What an impressive run by the 45 car, Tyler Reddick.
Todd, you were there up above. On TV, it looked the same. Not in a bad way. Look, when I keep saying the same, I'm not saying that as a negative. I just don't want the fan. Like, I'm not going to BS you. Like, it looked the same. It looked like every Darlington I've ever seen. Was the closing rate different? Entry or threat? Like, give me the nuance you and I would look at. Was there a moment, the middle of 1 and 2? Like, was there something that jumped out? Or did you think, I don't know, it looks like Darlington?
It looked like Darlington. I love your duck analogy. That's a great one because I really feel like there's a lot to it. The pieces that look different to me is the green flag pit cycle. They looked like they stopped in turn 3. Like they just could not, with no downforce, they just couldn't roll any speed getting to the line. In the other part, and Austin talked about it, you saw a lot more slide jobs. It wasn't like you drove up beside somebody and side-by-side race through 3 and 4. You just saw them drive and roll so much speed in the corner and then just go up to the wall and block the air. So I feel like the way you executed passes here was different in that you just slid up in front of somebody. It was a lot more of a slide job than it was just side drafting and pulling people back.
Yeah, I want to read this highlight because there was a turning point in the race, obviously, for Tyler Reddick, and we've mentioned it before, but changing this battery at the end of stage 1, he ran 4 laps longer on the final green flag pit cycle compared to the cars that he was racing. And everybody on the broadcast, what is Billy Scott doing? What are they thinking? Is this going to be the right call? He came back on track 7 seconds behind Brad Keselowski, but passed him for the lead and won by 5.8 seconds.
Yeah, and you look at it, they did this in stage 1. They went to the physical midpoint of stage 1. Now Brad won the stage, but they had already seen. Brad came, I think, at lap 39 for stage 1. Tyler Reddick stayed out and put it to the physical split point of 45. And if he had 2 more laps, I think he runs Brad down in that first stage. And that's part of the piece. Steve, you know this. This place, when you've got a 5-lap advantage on tires, you don't have to fight somebody. You just drive by them because, and Kyle, you know that. It's just that some places you get a 5 or 8 lap advantage, it just gets you frustrated because you can't get by them. Here, that's enough of a piece that you just clear people. And I think Billy Scott called it right. He went to the physical midpoint, had a little tire advantage at the end, and it just strolled it into victory lane.
But I want to go to this. You know, he did. They had a tire advantage, and Brad K said he just drove past me. You know, I mean, when you listen to the stuff, that wasn't a pass. He just blew me away. But I think we're seeing something this year. Not only we saw it here, we saw it at Phoenix. We've seen it. Fast cars are winning races. The guy who is the best car is winning races this year. In the past, we've run these first 3 or 4 races or 4 or 5 races, and we've seen guys steal a race on fuel mileage or do something. We're not seeing any of that. We're seeing speed win races. And that's the way it used to be in the sport. That's the way it was back in the 80s, back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s. Why are we seeing that more, do you believe, now than we've seen in the previous 2 or 3 years with this car?
I think part of it is Goodyear's move to what they've done with tires and making lap time fall off. When we have grip going away from race cars, good cars don't lose as much grip, and we have that ability. And I really think here you saw the fact that we've got I was told by somebody it's 350 to 400 pounds of downforce they lost in these cars.
Wow.
And when you look at that, we've taken that much downforce away, then the aero block isn't as big because there's not as much downforce to start with. So dirty air isn't as big a deal. We've got a much smaller spoiler on the car, less drag there, and we've got less of effect of the under car. So I think when we get to the point that we've got less downforce, the dirty air doesn't play. A fast car just drives by cars.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to throw this out. So Alex Lambert on the YouTube chat here disagrees with me, which I love because, trust me, I'm wrong a lot. But no, this is a great stat. Now, I'm not checking it. I'm going off what's put in here. It says that last year the leader had about 10 seconds over 10th this year in 20 laps, and last year was only 6 seconds. So basically what he's saying is he felt like the top 10 or 12 spread out, more this year with the discrepancy in speed. So if that's downforce power or just handling, you know what, Alex, I will agree with that I do think that variation in speed, I'll say it that way. That's the magic for me, right? They can't all run the same speed. Exactly. I do want to think it's funny because, remember, this is the car that they're all the same in my air quotes. They're the same. Well, don't tell Joey Logano that's the same as the 12 car you're seeing on screen right now, because I can tell you his wasn't the same.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Todd, we appreciate you joining us. You have a safe drive home, and watch how I do this from one goat, Todd Gordon, to the next goat. Let's take a listen to the owner of 2311, Michael Jordan, and what he had to say post-race.
Yeah, I guess MJ just needs to show up to the racetrack and his driver overcomes everything. I don't even know where to begin. All the issues for him that he overcame, MJ. What was that like watching from your perspective?
I'm pretty sure it's frustrating for him because he had an unbelievable car. And, you never know what's going to happen, especially at Darlington. And I think that, the key to him winning was, just keeping his head. I think Billy did a good job of trying to keep him calm. We knew we had a fast car. We knew on a 30-lap run, we were real good. On a short lap run, we were real good. So we just had to get the car right. And, he kept his composure, and I think he did an unbelievable job.
I know you're so competitive. How fun is that when you know he's down and out and watching him come to the field?
Well, I just wanted everything to be, good, because once he gets back out there, then I feel like his competitive juices is going to carry him all the way to the end. And, those are the longest 18 to 20 laps that I can even imagine. I just didn't want to see a caution, and a caution would have changed everything. But he did the job. He earned it all week, and I'm real proud of the team.
Congratulations, 4th win on the season.
Thank you, guys.
A caution would have definitely changed everything. And I know a team that was hoping for a caution as we move to a guy who I am super, super impressed with this week, Brad Keselowski. He's still walking with a cane. We don't even know truly how he's feeling and what the update is on after surgery, but finished second here at Darlington. Chris Buescher at one point looking like he may have been pulling into victory lane here at the Lady in Black. So, Stevie, when you're watching RFK, a solid day to hang their hat on. 55 points for Brad Keselowski in the 6 today.
Listen, solid day, solid year. Good last week. We're starting to see some, this isn't a blip anymore. This isn't that one little green dot on the radar that could turn into a rain shower. Now it's a little bit of a true front of weather. They're consistent. Great looking cars, by the way. Brad was in studio and talked to us on Inside the Race. It airs on the NASCAR channel. It was last Wednesday about the Biffle throwback. And you know what? If you're going to throw back to a guy that could get it done at a racetrack as great as the Biff did, it was great to see that they also had the performance. These 3 cars looked good. They drove good. I said it last week, KP. I don't know what the magic sauce is for RFK, but when they're good, they're all good. Like whatever it is, whatever knob they're turning, whatever, aero packet, whatever quote it is, it seems to be a little driver agnostic, which is different. Some things are very driver specific, but man, Priest, Buescher, Brad all ran good. It was fun to see the veteran up front doing it. And I will tell you, we're not supposed to have favorites, but if I could have one thing this year, it would be a Brad K win. Like I want to see Kyle Busch win. I want to see Brad. I want to see those drivers from my generation at least have that moment that we can cheers to them. This wasn't a win, but it felt good for me out of the whole organization, KP.
Yeah, and listen, you predicted it last week. You said it. You foresaw it. And with all the RFK cars, they run the same. And that speaks volumes for that organization. That speaks volumes for those 3 drivers working together and what they're doing. And yeah, man, Brad was, golly, man, you just hurt for him, but at the same time, you're happy for him too, because Brad has gone to RFK, put his name on the wall, and then grabbed that thing by the throat and said, we're going to drag Roush Racing and Roush Fenway Racing back into prominence, back into something. And they are doing it. And I agree. It's not just that one-off race, because we've seen that from them before. We've seen that with a lot of different teams. They have that one bright shining moment and they hang their hat on it all year long. And it's like, yeah, remember back to the first Charlotte race? We really ran good then. Yeah, that was 8 months ago. But these guys are showing up week in and week out, and they're scoring points, and they're putting themselves in contention to win races. They're not going to win races. I said it here last week. I'll say it again. They're not going to win races on a consistent basis like 2311 is right now, or like Hendrick or Penske and those guys when they get their stuff together. But by God, they can take some races right now, and they can capitalize on it. And Martinsville's coming up, and that's a place they can also.
The difference I saw of RFK this week compared to other weeks, and I truly believe it played dividends in their finishes, especially with Brad Keselowski, was Saturday qualifying.
Yeah.
Great point.
Brad finally had a great qualifying session, put it together in a qualifying lap, and was able to rack up a ton of points on Sunday. I think that's the key to this team.
Yeah, I want to say that. I want to say this too.
Go ahead, KP. Jump in.
No, I want to say this too, and Steve can speak to this. Is sometimes the teams step up, and they've gone from running 15th or running 10th, and now all of a sudden they're running in the top 4 or 5 and contending for a win. Those pit crews stepped up. Those pit crews kept them in contention. That's a tough step. That's a tough step to be on pit road and to have to up your game from a 9.8 to a 9.2 or a 9.3 or a 9.4 pit stop. That is a tough thing. And I want to give the pit crews and those guys on pit road that opportunity to say, tip of the hat to you guys, man, because you stepped up and kept them in the game. You didn't take them out of the game.
It's funny. I was going to say the same thing. A lot of base hits. So I don't think the pit crews seem to have this raw firepower to go from third to first. But, man, they don't have the ball fumble from first to 20th either. Exactly. They are keeping the owner boss in the race. The Buescher pit crew is keeping them there. The Priest pit crew is maybe just not the pit crew. The Priest was a little behind, so we didn't see as many stops. But the fact that he ran there kind of all day tells me their pit crew as well performed. So to your point, just really doing what they need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Darlington's such a heavy track for pit road. These pit crews have to be mistake free. It's one of these where we make a ton of stops. Let's hear from Brad Keselowski. We have his post-race audio as well.
Runner-up position, led 106 laps, a big-time points day for you as well, 55 points, but I heard you guys say it on the radio, felt like you might have had the best car on the day. How do you process this?
Yeah, no, we didn't have the best car on the day, not compared to Tyler. Tyler drove a hell of a race, and he's driving a rocket, and he's making it count right now. So I think we got the most out of the day. We were going to get honest, but we scored a lot of stage points, second place, first place loser, but that's okay. We're doing the things we need to do and making the most of the days we have, and it's really cool to have the great Biffle cars running up front. I put a nice right side stripe on the car. I think that would make Greg proud. If you know Greg, you understand that one, but a good day for us on Plumbing Ford Mustang.
I love that he's
when
driving a rocket ship and taking
Yep.
what he's saying and doing the best with it, or not.
Yep.
That was a good line.
It was a good line. I also love that he said, yeah, we were not the best car of the day. Clearly the best car of the day passed me there at the end of stage 3. All right. So we've talked to Ford. We have obviously talked the winner, which was a Toyota. Let's jump into some Chevrolets because Carson Hocevar, KP, your guy, was the highest finishing Chevy of the day in that old Dale Earnhardt throwback scheme from Chili's. So what'd you make of the Hurricane on Sunday at Darlington?
Listen, again, he is putting themselves in contention. I've said that is I'm not sure race wins are going to come or where it's going to be, but I'm telling you, we are seeing, and maybe this should be my hot take. Let's just go with this. This is my hot take. So my hot take is not only Carson Hocevar, it's Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs had another incredible performance, and I've been blessed to be around this sport for a long time. I saw when Darrell Waltrip came in and challenged David Pearson and Richard Petty, when Dale Earnhardt Sr. came in and challenged those guys. Harry Gant, Terry Labonte, they came in and they latched on to Darlington and they became contenders because they could run at a place like this. We're seeing a Carson Hocevar. We're seeing a Ty Gibbs run up there. We saw Cindric run. We see Tyler Reddick. We're seeing a changing of the guard right now, and they're doing it week in and week out. Hocevar is going to have to be contended with at some point in time. And I said it when everybody was whining about him a few weeks ago. Whine all you want to. Whine all you want to. He's going to come in here and he's going to take your seconds. He's going to take your thirds. He's going to take your fourths and fifths, and he's going to win some races. And he did it in this Earnhardt-esque car, which was just flipping fantastic to see that blue and yellow, which was reminiscent of the Wrangler car running there. But when I look at Hocevar, and I said it, I'm going to say it. I said that I talked about Reddick being a little bit of a reminder of Cale Yarborough. These are throwback drivers. These guys are changing the sport. They're going to continue to change the sport. And listen, I told you, I got my Hocevar lifetime membership. I'm in that fan club. I'm going to the convention.
Hey, Spire's the real deal. That's all I'll say. I mean, it's no longer a flash in the pan. They're a real deal. Look, are they winning races yet? No. Are they one of the top 3 teams? Let's not get carried away. I'm not ready to move them up. But they used to be excited to have a car finish 20th. Now their worst car finished 20th. Doesn't get much bigger than that, right? They've taken 3 cars. They've moved all the way up. I said this a long time ago. The goal of every race team should be shown on TV for a reason other than because you messed something up.
Yeah.
And what Hocevar did today, what Suarez did today, and what they continue to do this year, as I know he's the Hurricane, Diffie gave him the name, and he is entertaining, as we always say, and he almost entertained himself into a wreck on the front stretch, 3 wide with Buescher and someone else there at the end. But it was storming to the front on fresher tires when it happened. I tell people a lot, Jeff Gordon, his rookie year, wrecked, I don't know, some ridiculous number of cars. It's like 15 or 20 cars. But he did a whole lot from like the top 3 or 4. He didn't wreck from 25th. Yeah. And I think that's what we're starting to see with Hocevar, which is now he's 3 wide banging doors, but that wasn't for 19th. That was coming to driving up into the top 5 at a racetrack where there was probably a million times to over push. What did they say? He hit the wall once in practice. You know what I say? When you hit the wall once in practice and once in qualifying, and then you don't take yourself out of the race, that means your learning curve is truly learning. Right? Yeah. You're not just banging your head against the wall. You're absorbing it.
You're not driving a Gen 6 car.
Yeah.
What's that?
And you're not driving a Gen 6 car.
Yeah, true.
Well, yeah, like it's like A+ for Hocevar. Suarez, if you'd have said he was going to run 7th, nope, no chance. I wasn't going to believe it.
No.
Ryan Sparks and the 7th crew fired themselves into the top 10. I know McDowell, he's not going to feel great about the 20th, but hey, like I said, if that's your worst car, that's pretty good batting average.
Listen, I saw Suarez out in the fan zone before the race started and spoke to him for a minute. He knew they were going to run in the top 10. That's how confident he was. He knew where they were at, and he knew if he didn't make a mistake, they were going to do it, and they did it. And that's where Spire is. They know what they have going in. They know what they're capable of, and they're executing. They're executing on a regular basis, and they have all year this year. They're not going to be that team that's going to go out there and just do what 23XI is doing right now, but they are maximizing this opportunity week in and week out.
How much do you think that kind of putting all of your, and I don't want to say eggs in a basket, because I know they have other drivers. They have Michael McDowell, who's a veteran driver. Daniel Suarez came over from Trackhouse. But when you have a guy that he doesn't seem to lack confidence, Carson Hocevar just comes over and you kind of put all of your effort into like, this is our driver. We sign him to a 10-year deal. He's here for a decade. I have to imagine inside of an organization, Steve, that creates like, all right, we have something to build on, and this is a confidence momentum builder for us.
Yeah, listen, if you're putting together kind of a lineup, I feel like there's a reason for all three. And I think that's really the point, right? Hocevar, without a doubt, when you look at just raw talent, right? He's in that Kyle Busch realm. He's in that, like I said, that Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Kyle Busch. You can go down those ones that are just naturally gifted, talented. Right, like Denny Hamlin has a lot of talent, but he also talks about how hard he works and all these other things. And Hocevar might, he just doesn't talk about it. So he does a nice job of kind of leaving us all in the dark of how he gets ready. But then you have a McDowell who he is that man come to work with the lunch pail, right, man? He strikes me as a guy that is going to work and study. And, he's like the Jeff Burton, right? He's like that guy that still is going to win races and still be very good, but he is going to beat you in preparation. And then you have Suarez, who's become a little bit of a journeyman driver who's driven a bunch of places. And we saw last week on pit road, him pushing a shovel with Ross Chastain. I think he has a little bit of that chip on his shoulder. Yeah. I'm ready to prove that I belong here. And I think it's an interesting mix, right? You have a guy, Suarez, who has won, trying to prove that he belongs here. You have a Hocevar who thinks he belongs here, as he should, trying to find his way a little bit. And then you have this journeyman or this blue collar guy in McDowell, and the mix of three. And then you have the kind of the patriarch of the whole thing with Jeff Dickerson. And if you know Jeff, he doesn't say a lot, but he is like brilliant. He's like in a different world when it comes to trying to analyze and break down talent. There's a lot of other very important people in the garage area that get Jeff's opinion on things for that reason. So I think they're putting together a great mix over there, and they're putting together a mix of building, right? They're not looking for gasoline on a flyer, big flame. Hopefully it's enough. I think it's brick by brick. Like it seems like this is one of those lasting buildings, right? Like we're going to build slow so we can survive when we get there. Now, look, I could be wrong in a couple of years, but this isn't just been a flash in the pan. This has been a 12, 16, 18 month, maybe even a 24-month process.
Yeah, and listen, I think it's a great grouping when you look at it, because I look at McDowell and I think there's drivers that you can take to Daytona in a shoebox and they're going to run good at Daytona and Talladega, and McDowell's one of those guys. He's going to find a way to find the draft, put that car. He did it with Front Row. He's done it everywhere he's been. He did it with Michael. He's done it everywhere he's been. That allows this team, Spire, to learn from what he does, from what he's leading them. We look at Suarez. I think sometimes we forget Suarez was an Xfinity champion. He's won races. He's been there. He's been to the top of the mountain in the Xfinity Series. He's won Cup races. And you're right. He is that journeyman, but he's that steady guy that if you can keep him in that place, he's going to produce these 7th, 8th, 9th place finishes and get them for you. And then you've got Hocevar, who you just let run wild, man. Just let run wild and let him take you in a million different directions and learn from his mistakes, but learn when he's successful too. And the entire organization continues to grow. It's just a different philosophy and a different approach to what racing is. It's what Spire's doing. But we saw the same thing at Trackhouse when they started doing some of their stuff.
Ooh.
It was a different philosophy, a different approach than what Hendrick or Gibbs or those guys were. And it worked. They won races, and these guys can win races too. So I think we're just in, and I mentioned it before when we talk about a changing of the guard with a Ty Gibbs and with a Hocevar, it's maybe a changing of the guard or a changing of the model with what we're seeing with Spire and Trackhouse and some of these other teams.
Yeah, let's talk about a team who hasn't had a change into the guard. They've had these same 4 teammates. Obviously, Alex Bowman sitting out with some vertigo issues still, Justin Allgaier inside of that car. But Hendrick Motorsports, a rough day for them at Darlington, which I'm not used to seeing necessarily. William Byron was the highest finishing Hendrick car in 8th. And then it was, I have to go all the way down to Chase Elliott in 15th. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah.
Where's Larson? Where's Larson?
Well, Larson pitted late.
Larson
He's
pitted.
went
They
down
had
to
an
32nd. He had an issue.
He had an issue,
And then
okay.
Justin Allgaier, as you mentioned, in 24. I think it's a little unfair to, you know, you're going to talk about hard car to drive, especially if you don't drive it very often.
Of course.
Look, so how do I rate it? Real simple. I think the 5 was the fastest. The last stage just
Were
got
you
away
not
from him.
surprised, Steve, by how poorly they ran?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Anytime Hendrick doesn't have cars up inside the top 10, I'm going to be surprised because my expectations are there. I'm not panicking or anything like that. It's this low downforce package, which is a little different. Yeah, did I think they would be better? If one of them would have come out here and dominated, would I be surprised at that? No, I'm definitely more surprised at how maybe just uncompetitive they were. I thought Chase did what Chase does with a car that couldn't win, right? And he was like, I'm just not going to hit anything, and I'm going to run kind of middle of the top 10, and ended up fading it towards the end. The 24 was amazingly quiet. I don't think he got outside between 7th and 10th all day long. He ran there all day, which is amazingly quiet. And like I said, I think Larson could have just as easily ran 5th, right? The last stage got away from him. So I'm not ready to, I'll be honest, this is one of those races that I'm like, last year, they weren't good at Darlington either, and shame on us for thinking it would make a difference because they were great for the rest of the year. But for sure, you're not crazy to say, where are they? Because they really weren't in the – but look, you know, you can't say, well, RFK ran good and 2311 ran good and Spire ran good. And, well, then someone has to run bad. Like
You're
you
right.
can't have –
You're right.
this isn't golf.
Right.
We can't have a
You're
T6.
right.
We can't have 9 guys.
I'm
You
not
know.
used to it. Hendrick,
No,
this
it's
is the
fair.
longest
It's
we've
fair.
gone the whole season in the next gen era without
Yeah.
Hendrick Motorsports being in victory lane. It's weird. It's weird.
It is weird. That is true.
Yeah, it is
That
weird.
true.
But I think Steve nailed it. And we used to laugh. We used to talk about it all the time when Jimmy and Chad started to kind of not be Jimmy and Chad on a weekly basis. It's because we held them to a standard that was way, way, way up here. So they were still running 4th and 5th, but we were still holding them where we wanted them to be winning. And I think sometimes Hendrick falls into that group. We expect every week that they're going to be right there at the top, that they're going to be right there at the peak, and they're just not. What I saw today, and I think it pays dividends for the 24 team, for a William Byron. I think it pays dividends for a Kyle Larson as we move into the season. They had to grind today. They had to grind to make something happen. They had to keep themselves in the race with a car that wasn't race winning, that wasn't going to put them in the top 5, and make the best out of it. And when you do that, that builds the team. That builds you. That listen, you learn more on days like this than you do when you're standing in victory lane, because a lot of times in victory lane, it's like, man, how do we do that? How are we going to do that again? We need to do that next week. But
the only thing I'll say, though, KP, that's different this year in this chase format is they are slowly losing ground. So I don't think any damage is done. Chase is 5th, Williams 6th. That's fine. But like Larson today, I know he had some stage points, thank goodness, because his finish, he's now 10th in points. So I'm not sounding the alarm. But in the whole win and you're in era, you're like, oh, don't worry, they can be baptized in victory lane next week and everything will be fine. And now you're
that
like,
is a great,
not so much.
And that is a great point, because sometimes and I know I do, sometimes I still think about racing like we raced last year. And you think about where you were at and what you were doing and all that stuff. And all of a sudden you say, oh, no, it's a different set of rules. And that's a wake-up call to everybody. It should be a wake-up call when you see these guys that are just there doing this, but they're losing ground at the same time.
Well, we talk about groups losing ground. I got one that jumps off the page, and one of you mentioned it. Let's talk Trackhouse, right? So Ross Chastain is 20th in points. Ross Chastain ran okay to mediocre at Darlington for a guy that's pretty good around there. So it's funny how, let's go to expectations. SVG 14th. I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Connor Zilic 18th. I don't feel too bad about that. Ross Chastain 16th, right in the middle of his two teammates. I don't feel good about that. So there's the perfect measurement of expectations. I expect Ross at a place like Darlington to be outrunning his two teammates, one being a rookie, one being only his second year kind of running ovals full time. And 14th, 16th, and 18th, I would love to see at least one car, Ross specifically, up there around 10th, 8th, 7th, because look, can they figure it out? Sure. But we talk about losing ground. Ross is now all the way down in 20th in points. And do I think he can still make the chase? Yes. But we've talked about this. If you trip into the chase in 14th, do you really think you're going to just be able to make this magical run in the final 10? I don't know the answer to that. But that's an organization that lacks firepower currently.
Ross didn't have, I mean, he won the Coke 600. It's a crown jewel, of course, and he won it in ultimate fashion last year with the pass against William Byron, but he didn't have he wasn't lights out last year.
No.
2025 wasn't a Trackhouse year either.
You have to be a little concerned, because what I will say is, I'm going back, I'm going to age myself now. Back in the, 90s, back, you'd go to Martinsville, run well. Jeff Gordon would run so good at Watkins Glen and Sonoma, it covers things, right, KP? So you have SVG, who, look, you're going to win 3 races. So if you're looking to hang banners, you're going to go to some road courses, you're going to hang some banners. And I'm not trying to discount that, but back to leadership. You have to be very careful that those 3 or 4 banners doesn't just instantly take away the edge you need to be good everywhere else. You have to leave Darlington pissed that you ran 16th.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, and let me say this first. I wish I could go way back in the time machine to the 90s. Steve just said, I'm going to go way back in time to the 90s. I'm old, right? I'm a lot older.
Weaver wasn't even around, man. We have 3 generations here. Don't you know that?
If I go back to the 90s, I'm going to dissolve.
I'm going to say, it's like a family reunion every Sunday night.
I'm going to say, so the Trackhouse rocket that they were on when Ross was the Hail Melon and all this stuff. When Rick Hendrick picked up the phone and told him to calm down, it ended. Something happened right along in there, and I don't know what it was. I'm not saying that, but something happened right along in there, and we haven't seen that Ross. We haven't seen that Ross on a weekly basis. We haven't seen that swagger showing up at the racetrack and doing that. And you can and they're going to win their banners, and you're going to walk in, you're going to see all those banners, but those banners quickly become 3 years old. Those banners quickly become old news. Steve said it earlier. This is Darlington. What'd you do for me when we get to Martinsville? It's like, what are you going to do for me this week? Yeah. What are you going to do for me this week? This is old stuff. I've said it on here 1,000,000 times. My dad had this thing, and we did it at the race shop at 12 midnight on Sunday. It's the next week, dude. It's the next week. That's last week. Once we get to 12 midnight tonight, Tyler Reddick is old news, because you're looking to Martinsville, man. You're looking to Martinsville because that's what's going to matter.
Yeah, we used to be able to sulk until the wheels touched down in Concord. That was our rule. Yeah. You could sulk the whole flight home, but when the wheels touched down, you had to move along.
And that's a great way to be, because you got to focus and move, man. That's what winning's about.
We asked in the chat here, this is our poll question of the night, whose day was better than their finish reflected? We've talked about all 3 of these guys now, SVG, Daniel Suarez, and Chris Buescher. So do you guys have an answer for one of those? Whose day
was better than their finish? SVG, Suarez, or Buescher? So I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit, and I'm going to say that Buescher's day was better than a 9th place. It got away there. They I think it was a game. Let's talk about that. So pit road entry, Todd Gordon just talked about how it looked like they really had to stop. So apparently the lack of downforce really had you check up into 3. And I didn't hear any infuriated radio, and I haven't checked on social media, but I think what I'm inferring from everything I've heard is that the 17 was trying to jump the 6 to pit road by a lap to try to leapfrog them to get an advantage. So there probably was less to no communication on the spotter stand. we saw the in-car camera. Well, here we go. We're riding on board Reddick. It's hard to see. Do we see a hand? I don't see a hand yet, KP. No hand, no hand, no hand, no hand. He just checks up, right? So
yeah,
obviously that's the roof. Maybe it's a little bit further left, but the evidence I see right here is no hand out the window. And I think that's why Buescher didn't press the button and cuss Reddick for running him over, because he probably, in hindsight, he's like, yeah, that was a little on me. I kind of checked up. And that was it. That was the risk to win the race. Finished 9th. No harm, no foul. But yes, I thought he had a better day than his finish reflected.
But that in-car camera looked just like Denny Hamlin and Eric Jones and Bubba Wallace going into the corner too. The lead car checks up and you've got no place to go. And we didn't see a hand out the window with Eric Jones. You didn't see any of that. And I don't know if Eric was coming to pit road or if Denny just got in hot, what it was, but it's almost identical. That these two things that happened in turn 3 are almost identical. So obviously, like Todd Gordon said, visually, these guys were having to slow down a lot more than they had in the past. In the old days, you didn't even try to run around turns 3 and 4 on the racetrack because you knew you were dead stopped. Once you
could have given a little swerve too, right? Like we're talking about a hand, but KP, you obviously done this way more than I ever dreamt to. But couldn't he come off from 2 if he runs down a lane off the wall? Isn't that kind of another way to let Reddick know, hey man, I'm going left?
Always. You give the outside, because when you get to the corner, to the corner, if you move over, you're here. When you get to the corner, you go this way. This guy's going to go to the outside because you've already opened up the lane for him. And that's the way it kind of always was. I heard Mark Martin talking about stuff today, and on some of the broadcasts on the radio as I was listening coming up the road. And part of it was, this is where he learned to just give the finger out the window to say, take the lane, to keep his speed up and keep his momentum. And then he started doing it at Martinsville. Then he started doing it at Charlotte and started doing it at other places. And he became the guy that did that. But at the same time, he became the guy that drove back past you 15 laps later when his stuff was still good and you'd wore your stuff out.
So, KP, I'm interested in that because on the broadcast, they were talking about how the spotters didn't want to communicate with each other and didn't want to let other spotters know that they were coming down pit road with strategy. Yeah. I thought the number one rule in the rule book of coming onto pit road was you just signal. You give a nice little signal.
Okay, let me say we always did. And let me say, I thought every driver. Now, the problem is with these cars, you can't just stick your hand up and start waving like this because nobody sees anything behind you. You know what I mean?
It has to be out the
window. You got to have something to get out. And at places like this where you're running, sometimes if you're just offset a touch, you don't see anything.
Well, Kyle, look, it was Zilich hit somebody last week at Vegas. Yeah. Like this is now 2 weeks in a row. This would be one of those things that maybe I'd be reminding my driver, hey man,
that's exactly.
Stick your hand out the window.
Yeah. But, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm not blaming any spotter. I'm not blaming any spotter for anything, because I would put more of the blame on drivers, because here's the thing: in the end, you're the one sitting in there hanging on the steering wheel. You're the one that's making the decisions on whether you're going to pit, excuse me, or whether you're coming or not, to let that guy know. It's when I pull up to a 4-way stop, and the lady across from me goes, "Go ahead, you can have it." I know that's my place.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know that's my place. So what I'm saying is a lot of this has got to fall back on the drivers, and drivers can't keep just saying, well, nobody told me. Well, I don't care if nobody told you. You're sitting in the seat. You're hanging on the steering wheel. I shouldn't have to tell you how to drive. You should know how to drive the car.
Yeah.
I think Butcher's reaction told us everything we need to know, which is
exactly.
he if he thought he had given clear signal, he would have been much more upset.
Especially after their history. After their history a little bit down there, he would have been.
I got a newsmaker out of Darlington that's not ready, that had nothing to do with the race, that I want to get some opinion on. But I'm looking at the boss over here, making sure I'm not messing up her rundown.
You're not. All you.
And I bring this up because he's the winning owner. So I was expecting a faster 11 car. It was pretty good there at one point, then it went away, but he was also in a wreck, so maybe the damage from there. I think for sure there had to be something more going on than what we saw there. But earlier in the weekend, I'd like to put you on the spot, so you get to play analyst here for a minute. We're going to weave through traffic with Alex Weaver. Earlier in this weekend, and I apologize because I'm not sure who asked the question. I would give them credit. But it was basically, Denny was in the media center, and they asked, with your success here as an owner. This is pre this last win. And hey, you just won last week. Have you given any more consideration about your driving? Because he's been relatively vocal that the end of 27 seems to be the end of the runway for Denny Hamlin. He was very reserved in his statement, but he said, not really. I feel like I've given Coach Gibbs and everyone at Joe Gibbs Racing a good end point so they can plan accordingly, which almost was like, hey, I'm a driver and an owner now. And that's what I really wish somebody would tell me as an owner, right? Like it was a very mature answer.
Yeah.
So my question for you, Weaver, is should the fan be okay that he's so analytical about this and he's just okay with being done at 27? Does the success of 2311 prove that he is just as good kind of, in the kitchen as he is perhaps behind the steering wheel and mixing up the right ingredients? Like, what's your thoughts on this Hamlin conversation about him basically saying the end of next year is it while he's currently winning races?
I think Denny operates very analytically. I think he has moved into this owner mindset, which rightfully so. He is one of the drivers that I've seen, Brad Keselowski, they have stepped in wholeheartedly to these owner roles, which I appreciate. And I think that's how you have to do it. If you want to make the sport better, if you want to have a team that competes for wins, I think you have to give it your all. And I think for Denny, it has been a lot. And take out the personal side of things and everything that's happened in the last year, but operating the team, making decisions, and then also going and checking in with your other team that you race for, which is a completely different organization. I know they go hand in hand and they're pairs there at Joe Gibbs Racing in 2311, but it is different. They operate differently. They have different owners. It's a different building. I think it has to be a challenge. And I think at one point you have to be all in somewhere. And I think it's hard to be all in when you have 2 feet in 2 doors.
Yeah.
So for Denny, I think he's saying like, I've committed. I've made a commitment to Joe Gibbs Racing. I want to finish out my career, and this is how I think I can be strong and how long I can be strong. But I'm going to go and give my all to a team that I've committed my all to.
I have a follow-up, but KP, I can see the wheel. I've worked with Kyle enough. I could see the wheels turning all the way from here. What's your thoughts? You've done it. You've driven. You've owned.
So
you've
here's
done
my
all
thoughts.
of this.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts. So I think there's a lot. I think it's really, really hard what Brad K is doing.
Yes,
I'm gonna take Brad K because he owns the team he's driving for.
Yeah.
And he has to make those decisions as an owner for his teammates, where Denny is not. Denny's making those decisions for another team that he owns. Somebody else, he gives input to his team over here. I'm going to say this about having an end game, Steve, and I will tell you this, and I've seen it with a lot of people. I think Truex. I think we saw it with Truex recently. I think we saw it with Darrell Waltrip. We saw it with so many guys. Once in your head, you say, that's my date. You're not that guy anymore. You're not the guy that's 100%. You might be 99. You might be 98. You got a high percentage. You can still win some races, but you're not that guy anymore. And you're either in or you're out. And once you falter, you're not anywhere. You're in no man's land. You're just out there. And that's a dangerous place to be because and then one day you wake up halfway through the year and it's like, yeah, I'm going to get back in. You can't get back in because you've already got out. And I don't know how to put into words what I'm trying to say, but I know for me, and I will say this, that I was in. And one day I decided that when Adam came along, and he started in 2001 for his first Cup year, I was out. I was going to run that year with him, and then I was going to be, and I was never in again. I was never in again as a driver. I had already begun to trail off, but then I was just there, sitting in a seat, doing the best I could, trying to convince myself I was the best, or doing the best I could, trying to convince myself, but it just wasn't there. Looking back on it, I can see it, and I've seen it with other drivers. So that's a scary place for me. When Denny starts talking about that end, I like the analytical side. Now I'm going to say, if anybody can pull it off, it's Denny Hamlin, because he has done some phenomenal things that I never believed Denny Hamlin would be capable of, just overcoming some of the things that he's come emotionally, mentally, and physically to come back and do this stuff. So if anybody can do it, I think he can, but it's uncharted ground as far as I'm concerned.
Well, what I'll throw in.
I do think 27 is it. I do think
So,
Denny
so,
will.
so he said, I'll throw this in. He said that he wants to get done when he still thinks he should do it. Right? Kind of like vacation. You know, we're like, oh man, I wish I had one more day. And then you stay and you're like, nope,
Yeah.
should have went home yesterday. This isn't as awesome as I thought it was going to be.
Leave him wanting
You know,
more.
he
I
doesn't want to
agree.
get to the second half of that year and wish that it was over. And the other thing I will say is while I'm not a big fan of like part-time entries because I do think it's really hard to prepare that way. You know, Denny's one of those guys that to be a great owner, I wonder if every once in a while he has to get behind the wheel of it. And what I mean by that is, you know, if everything's great, probably not. But say they lose something or they're struggling with something, you know, maybe he goes, you know, I'm going to go enter a fourth car at Pocono and drive it myself, even if he runs 15th later in his retired life. But he goes, oh no, let me tell you another thing the guys aren't telling you. The car's doing this. And, you know, like he, I think now look, if Tyler Reddick has 35 wins by the time that all happens, I don't think he's going to need to.
No, don't get back in the car. Yeah.
So here's the last thing I'm going to leave you with because I love numbers because this just hit me. Tyler Reddick has a 120-point lead over third. AJ Allmendinger in 18th has only scored 124 points. So when you say it's a 120-point lead,
that's more than I would have thought.
Yeah. Like his lead is almost as big as what it takes to be 16th in points.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty good start to the year. I mean, I'm
That's
not
a
exact,
great
but we're
start.
talking like a couple handfuls different. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
But I will say to close out and put a bow on the Denny Hamlin of it all, I have been impressed watching everything that Denny has taken on. I think seeing last year, watching a driver have one of his best years of his career at 44 years old, it was something that I was like, man, I did not think I was going to see this from somebody who has reached what most people would think would be the end of their career. And then also to be an owner, and then also to have all the 2311 stuff going on with NASCAR, and then to have the family issues. I think it was a big year for Denny. And I agree. I would want to go out while I'm leaving them wanting more. So if I'm Denny Hamlin, I'm calling it quits.
Yeah. And listen, if Denny wants to go out like that, and Steve had excellent, you know, to come back and run a race every now and then. People would always say, hey, why don't you come back and run some races? They were kicking my butt when I left. Why do I want to come back and get my butt kicked again? You know what I'm saying? That's my point. Denny's not that way. Denny could leave and say, well, they weren't kicking my butt when I left, so I'm going to come back.
Exactly.
I'm going to come back a little more. And that is, as an owner, to be able to sit in that car. And I think, to me, that's what Brad Kay does so good. When he's sitting in that meeting and he's listening to Busch or he's listening to Ryan Preece, they're telling him stuff he already knows. He's sitting there. You know what I mean? They can back it up. And that's a good place to have an owner, I think, in a lot of ways.
I'm still trying to get Stevie out of retirement. He walked away with them, leaving them wanting more, and I just want him atop the pit box one more time.
I have a job. Hell, I have 4 of them.
You got a million jobs, dude. You got a million jobs.
Let's get on and end the show here with our favorite segment to close out every week, weekend winners. So KP, I'm going to start with you. Who's your weekend winner this weekend?
You know I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go with Eric Jones. I mean, here he is backwards in the middle of turns 3 and 4, qualified 27th or 28th. He's way back when he's qualified. Here's a racetrack that you think he's going to run well at because he likes the place. He's had a couple of wins there, and they made something out of the day. Todd Gordon spoke earlier about recovering and making something. These guys made something, and Legacy needed something. They needed something 4 or 5 races into the year to hang their hat on. So I'm going to go with Eric Jones as a big winner today.
All right, Steve, who you got?
Look, it's low-hanging fruit, but I'm going to take it. It's going to be Brad Keselowski, and not just for the good run, but when he came in studio last week and he relived on the Inside the Race podcast about falling, about slipped. He told me about how he slipped on ice and he fell and he was he couldn't move. And he called his wife to come over there, and he goes, I said, man, were you scared about driving? He goes, Steve, I didn't think I'd ever walk again. I didn't know what I did, but I lay there on the ice scared to death. And we're talking not a day or a week. It was weeks later before he thought he was getting back into a race car. And the whole, I think there's way more that's gone on in the last 90 days for Brad Keselowski than any of us are probably ever giving it credit for. I know he technically didn't miss races because of an injury, but he is coming back from what is a a huge injury. So to not just get back in a race car, but then go and win both stages and finish second to the best car. Like, they by no means gave it up. They finished second to the best car. I think the weekend winner, without a doubt, driver owner Brad Keselowski.
At one of the hardest racetracks.
Yes.
It wasn't a walk in
That's
the
right.
park here at Darlington for him. And had a awesome paint scheme to boot. We love seeing the Biff paint scheme go around Darlington. Okay, I was going to have Brad Kes as well, but I'm going to pick a different one, and I'm just going to like stir my little pot here. I'm going to pick Daniel Suarez because
There.
I'm watching practice and qualifying. And of course, how it always happens in the sport of NASCAR, the two drivers that have beef or have conflict are always right beside each other, whether it be at driver intros, the parade laps, on pit road. They're right beside each other. They walk past each other. Daniel, who is making storylines not only for conflict with a past teammate, but for how he's been running and the expectations he has, I feel like, exceeded this season in that car with Spire. So to finish 7th and Ross Chastain finished 16th, my weekend winner is Daniel Suarez.
I love it. I love it.
Dude.
Great pick.
Good.
All right, Steve, what you got? Letarte's Lab this week.
So, I think I'm going to dive into a few different things. One thing I'm going to dig into the data, and I'm going to look at what new tires and old tires. When we say 3 seconds or 4 seconds off and fall off, I'm going to go in the SMT, and I'm going to show you where 4 seconds come from. And I'm going to show you what the duck was doing. I said these drivers were ducks, and they were paddling their little butts off. Well, I'm going to show you what their feet were really doing, because they were working. If they were playing the piano, they were on every pedal, man. It was impressive to watch live. So we'll probably do a little comparison of that. But then I'm going to quickly spin it forward. I know Martinsville is only a half mile, and I know we don't talk a lot about aero and horsepower, but let me tell you, give them a little bit more horsepower on those rear tires are going to heat the brakes up at the other end of the straightaway. So make no mistake about it, 80 more horsepower on the 2 drag strips connected by U-turns is going to make a difference. So we're going to look quickly ahead to Martinsville and what I think could be the key at winning at my favorite track on the circuit, Paperclip up in Virginia.
It is your favorite one. Am I correct in the schedule? We have Martinsville and Bristol, right?
We have Martinsville, Bristol, and then this magical thing that we haven't seen in years, a weekend off for the. Well, we've got a spring bum, but now they have multiple ones this year. So
love to see it. Well, no, basically what I'm saying is back-to-back short tracks, especially with Martinsville and Bristol.
Yeah.
Come on with it. I need to see some emotions running high. All right. Well, Steve will have you in studio this week, breaking down all the action and getting you ready for a great Paperclip weekend. We head to Martinsville on Sunday. The gang and I will be back to break everything down on NASCAR Inside the Race. Have a great Sunday evening. We'll see you next week.